Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, we're taking a look at, I don't know, are these things even still around? Windmills, and now I guess what's still around, wind turbines.
Yes.
See how I nailed that
You
pronunciation?
nailed it, the pronunciation. So windmills are definitely still around. I think it's more of a nostalgia type thing.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of like a lighthouse.
A little bit. I have a little bit of info on a windmill I just visited recently.
This is what happens. Every time you go somewhere, all of a sudden we have a neat new topic to cover.
Don't we?
Yeah.
That's where this topic came from, my vacation 2 weeks ago.
That doesn't surprise me.
We'll get to that later.
Let's get into the history of windmills, huh?
So first of all, what is a windmill?
I don't even know.
Like, really, what is it?
Tell me.
A windmill is a structure that converts the energy of wind into rotational energy by means of vanes called sails or blades.
Ooh, very technical.
And did you know...
Probably
I
not.
guess I did know this, but I didn't realize you don't think about it, that there's actually a couple types of windmills.
Yeah, there are. I have some notes on that later on.
I'd love to hear your detail on that, but the history, it's kind of crazy. The earliest known grain-powered windmill, so this would be something that would...
Grain-powered?
Not grain power,
Whoa.
grain milling.
Oh.
So they would make flour and stuff like that, or pump water. This was in Persia in 500 to 900 AD. These people were pretty smart.
Can I go back even further than that?
Whoa.
Yeah.
You got something before that.
Yeah, can you believe that?
Shoot.
I mean, sort of.
Is this the one that they weren't sure they could...
Yeah, so
Okay, go ahead.
the history of the windmill reaches back 3,700 years, in fact.
You and I cut and paste the exact same
That is not
content.
true. I wrote that sentence myself. So this was back in Babylonian times with ruler Hammurabi, where he supposedly unveiled his plans to convert the power of the wind, using, a windmill, to automate a network of irrigation windmills. So that's interesting,
But
right?
the story goes...
It goes wah wah.
Yeah.
No proof.
Exactly.
Maybe never happened. But also, more than 1,500 years later, Heron of Alexandria captured the wind, using the windmill as part of the earliest example of an organ, which I thought was interesting.
I thought that was stupid. You're going to capture the wind to make an organ? Like to play music? Is that what they mean?
Yeah, I guess so.
How does that benefit anybody?
Did you talk about Tibet or China at all?
So back in 1200 AD, in Tibet and China, they actually had windmills as well, and they were, again, for irrigation purposes, but primarily they were for milling grain.
Did you also see that they used them for prayer wheels?
I did not.
You say, what is a prayer wheel, James?
That's, from that movie, The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy? Is that the one where he rolls it and he pretends he's rapping?
I think that's probably the same thing based off of the description that I read of these, but I don't know that movie. I'm sorry.
You never saw The Golden Child?
I haven't. I'll add it to
Great
the
movie.
list. A prayer wheel is a cylindrical wheel on a spindle made of wood or stone or metal or something like that. And traditionally, the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum is written in some Nepalese language.
Yep.
And it's on the outside of the wheel. And so this is traditionally spun by the wind. And the wind touches the prayer wheel to help alleviate the negative karma of those that touch it.
This is the exact thing in The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy.
See, I said it sounded like
he
that.
rapped on it rather than oming on it. He was
He's pretty hip.
It
That was probably rather offensive to someone.
It was a great movie.
All right, let's
Sorry.
move on. How about that?
Let's move on. So a couple fun facts about kind of the older windmills.
Yeah.
So between 18...
Hold on. What are they called?
Older windmills.
Okay, windmills. I thought you said windmills.
I may have said
Okay.
windmills
Just
because
checking.
you know me and my enunciations aren't the best. So between 1850 and 1970, so relatively recent.
1850 and 1970.
That's a long time. So 120 years, more than 6 million mechanical windmills were installed in the United States alone.
Wow.
Keep in mind, the vast majority of these were really during kind of the agricultural boom period, and they were used for pumping water and irrigation on farms. And when you look at like farms, so let's say you're driving out in the countryside, driving around.
That was good.
Those metal ones that you see they're a ton of blades. There's like 20 blades on it. Has a tail on it, and it's typically a metal structure. Those are primarily water pumping windmills.
And I have a description of how those work later on.
That'd
if
be
you'd
great.
like yeah, you would like that?
I would.
Oh,
sometimes they're used for electricity, so sometimes these farms are off the grid and they have a generator and it generates power for the house. But in most cases, it's for pumping water and irrigation.
I think you should get a cabin off the grid that has wind power.
We're gonna do an off the grid episode and what's required, because I'm doing that someday.
I think we did that already.
We did?
It might not have been you.
Okay.
But there's one. But we could reevaluate.
We could do a better one.
We could do a better one. Everyone likes you anyways.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so can I go back a little bit?
Oh, wow. Shoot.
Maybe? Okay, so modern-ish windmills, I call them.
Modern-ish.
As we know them today, as they looked like they do now, started about the 8th and 9th century in like Western Asia, Middle East countries. So the first example of post mills started being made around the 11th century, with more advanced models of tower and smock mills being made around, a couple centuries later. So we talked about there's different kind of windmills. So the post mill is the early European style windmill. And I think this is probably what I don't know, I guess they all both look the same to me.
Yeah, they look very similar.
The defining feature is that the whole body of the mill that houses the machinery is mounted on a single vertical post, which can then be turned to bring the sails of the wind. The smock mill is a type of windmill that consists of like a sloping horizontal board, like weatherboard, and it's like 6 or 8 sides, so hexagonal or something like that, and it's topped with a roof, and it can rotate, like the roof can rotate and bring the sails into the wind, kind of like the whole post mill can do. And this thing's usually mounted on like a big stone or cement base so that it's even taller.
Yep.
But kind of the same-ish thing in my mind, but apparently a little bit different. I guess the housing of the machinery is maybe the big difference there.
Yeah.
But a fun fact for you, the tallest surviving smock mill in the United Kingdom, the Union Mill, can be found in Canebrook, in case you were off. Because I know during your vacations you like to go look at windmills and lighthouses. So if you want to go see an old one.
I do.
So back in the day, England and the Netherlands were like the two countries in Europe that were really big on windmills. And so from those places, immigrants who settled in North America brought their knowledge of windmills to help us out, because we're kind of stupid, right? And this is where they were mostly used for wind pumps. And the wind pumps in the 1930s, like you were saying, there were like 600,000 of them or something like that.
So fun fact about the Netherlands, currently there are over 991 windmills in the Netherlands alone. And these are more the traditional, what you think of a windmill.
They might do a little bit still, but not really.
Potentially. And the crazy thing was, I compared the size of the Netherlands to Pennsylvania. And I'm thinking, 999 isn't all that many. I mean, we had 6, whatever that number was I mentioned before. We had 600, where was it? 6 million.
Yeah.
So 900 isn't that much. But the Netherlands is only about half the size of Pennsylvania. So if you Netherlands would fit completely inside of Pennsylvania.
That's interesting.
And have a lot of room. So could you imagine in Pennsylvania, from let's say here to Harrisburg, there being 999 windmills?
Yeah. Isn't it weird? Have you ever seen those maps where they'll take like America and lay it over top of Australia, and almost all of the continental U.S. fits in Australia? But then if you take the U.S. and Australia, they both fit inside of Africa quite handily. Yeah. And then you think about this. There's old Pennsylvania, bigger than...
So you could drive across the Netherlands. It's like driving from here to Harrisburg.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That's great, yeah. So before we move on, for even more fun facts about windmills, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume it's maybe the National Wind Council, if there is one.
I feel like we should be subsidized by the government for our good work we're doing here.
I know, we're helping out.
Well, we're not being subsidized by anyone, but we do have a lot of shout-outs. A ton. I'm really catching up on them lately. So number 1, Cad Noobs.
Cad Noobs.
Apparently had a sweet band back in the day and sent us over some of their old loot. Yeah, I'll send you a link to their music.
Nice.
It's not like in your mom's basement recordings either. water. It's
Like legit?
legit. Yeah, I was
Okay.
surprised. William L. suggested to do water treatment as an episode, probably because he likes hearing us say poo water.
Ooh, that would be good.
Cameron M. goes to school right down the road at WVU. Listen to us
Go
on a
Mountaineers.
giant hey, you got it right. An 8-hour drive and wants an episode on aerospace, which we actually just did. So that's helpful.
Pow.
Yeah. It's like we're in sync with our listeners. Mark Z, this is a good one, offered to go camping with us.
Yes.
Mark Z's also from the Pittsburgh area, so what is it,
Nice.
Raccoon Creek State?
Raccoon State.
Yeah, he suggested we
Yeah,
go
Raccoon's
there.
a good one.
And said that I might be able to survive there because it's
you
not
could.
so gross.
Yeah.
Sujay R, representing Minneapolis, and his boy, spelled it boy.
I like how you did
Lucas got him listening, so double shout out there. I like that.
Lucas, me?
Not you, no.
Oh, his friend Lucas.
Yeah, so they're actually both Michigan Wolverine people. Boo. They have a company, though, called Urban Advancements, even though they go to college. Like, they're only like a year in, and they have a company.
So much more successful
And they're
than
like
you and
kind
I.
of do-goodery, so yeah, good for them, and they're better people than us. Brandon J, angry that we made an Al Gore invented the internet joke. Like, literally wrote in and said, why does that even show up? He didn't have anything to do with it. So, that's something. Zach M, going to be an EE and likes our podcast to block out his boss yelling at him.
Nice. EEs.
So,
better than a civil.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, Andy S thinks the washer and dryer should be in the top 10 inventions of all time. I'm not sure Andy is being serious or not, but I mean,
could you imagine the time savings?
we're talking about the wheel, and he
he's talking
says a
about
washer
clean-
and dryer.
he's
I don't
talking about
know.
clean
I'm not
clothes.
judging you, Andy. I mean, I don't want to do laundry either. So.
Either way, get your shout outs in, get your suggestions in.
Yeah, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. Subscribe. Leave us reviews. We're up over 130 last I checked.
Stickers.
Oh, yeah, we'll send you stickers if you
All
want them.
kinds of stickers.
They are gorgeous stickers. We have 4 flavors now.
We
so
do.
Ask for your stickers.
Let's move on.
Moving on. Let's start with a fun fact. What do you say?
Shoot.
What do you mean, shoot?
Like, do your fun fact.
Oh, okay. Since we only really care about America, the first windmill manufactured in the United States was designed by Daniel Halliday, who began inventing windmills in 1854 in his Connecticut machine shop. The windmill was highly successful. Get it because it's high? As a means of pumping water on farms and ranches and expanding the western frontier. So I also, kind of fun fact, I don't know if I I did write this, but I'm just going to talk about it.
Okay.
I didn't know this at all, but this was also windmills and water pumps were a huge part of expanding the railroad industry.
Yeah.
Because the water was needed for the steam-powered railroads or railroads.
Not the
trains.
railroads, the trains, the engines.
So that was really interesting because they couldn't just keep going without water. And a lot of this place, if you've ever been through America, isn't exactly, real fancy. It's
Actually,
still not.
I saw a map where it showed the rail, cross the country rail system, and where these water pumps, and it was literally right beside the railroads. They had the water pumping windmills.
That's cool.
That way they could
You could
pull
see
up,
'em right there,
throw
yeah.
some water in. You could see the little dots on the map.
It
It
makes
literally
good
followed
sense.
it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a gas station for like where highways are.
It's exactly like a gas station,
Exactly.
except different.
Except different. I got another fun fact for you.
Hold on first.
Shoot.
Who was the railroad guy? John Henry? Was
Yeah.
he? Yeah.
The guy that bent the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Him. Okay.
So fun fact, my
wanna hear it.
vacation...
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
You're the worst.
I'm not.
You are. So I love West Michigan. We're in this.
you do.
I love it. I love it. So we visit this beautiful town called Holland. I suggest
We're going
all
to
of
be
our
there
listeners.
soon.
We are going to be there soon. I suggest all the listeners check it out. It's beautiful. And there is a windmill there called the Diezwan Windmill. And this
Yeah.
windmill actually in Dutch means graceful bird.
Graceful
is the
bird.
name.
I like it.
Diezwan. And it's the only authentic working Dutch windmill in the United States. So this windmill reaches 100.
It's the only what?
It's the only authentic working Dutch windmill. There's lots of windmills that are here, but they're replications
I
or
gotcha.
they're not original. This one was actually in the Netherlands. Back in 1964, they paid $2,500 for it.
That's it?
But then it cost like $1 million to ship it, I
Oh.
think was the statistic that
Sounds
she did.
like a good investment.
Whenever we did the tour, they were telling us all about it. But it's 125 feet tall, and at the blades. And I never knew this. I guess I've never seen it happen. The top of these windmills, they actually rotate.
I already said this at least 2 times.
System.
Yeah.
But here, what they had to do with this particular windmill, the bearings and the rollers were eroding. They took the entire top off, rebuilt it with new steel and iron, and then put this thing back on.
Okay, so for any of you that are listening to this, you're probably thinking, wow, is that expensive? What a waste of money. If you've ever been to Holland, Michigan, you will know that those people have no lack of money.
Yeah.
So I can understand why this happened.
So it's a great tour. It's called Windmill Island, Holland, Michigan. Highly recommend. Holland Visitors Bureau should be sponsoring our show.
They really should be. That's interesting, though. That was a good fun fact, Luke.
Yeah, it was a very interesting tour. And another fun fact, the only registered Dutch windmill grinding person. I forget what it's called. She's a lady, and she actually is certified through this grinding organization or milling organization. She's the only female in the United States to have this certification to make grain.
Wow.
I don't really know what that means, but she basically makes flour.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. I know you know this, but did you know the first electricity generating windmill turbine was invented in 1888 in Cleveland?
Yeah, I did know that.
Good job, Cleveland. Look at you. Going all clean energy. That's what they're known for.
I don't know if they're also known for burning river brew.
No, just clean energy. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the wind pump a little bit because I think it's probably the most interesting use of the windmill. Like, I get it, they make power. I get it, they grind your bones to make your bread. Yep. Isn't that what that angry giant guy said?
Yes, he did.
So a bunch of these wind pumps are still active today, mostly in remote areas that don't really have infrastructure set up for distributing water, farms, irrigation systems, things like that. So the blades, known as sails, they catch the wind and turn a rotor. And this is kind of similar to how all of these windmills work, but these have a couple extra steps. The wheel assembly is attached to a hub assembly and long arms. The hub assembly drives geared mechanisms and converts that rotary motion into an up and down motion. And so that up and down motion then drives a long sucker rod, so the pump rod is what they call it, up and down inside of a pipe in a well. So attached to the end of the pipe is a cylinder with a sealed plunger going up and down, blah, 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 blah. That's the noise it makes. And it forces water up into the pipe. And so each upstroke pulls water into the cylinder, and on the downstroke, a check valve in the bottom doesn't let the water get pushed out, so the water is forced up the pipe with the next upstroke, and then out into wherever it's going.
So I have a hand version of this. So my cabin, we don't have...
A hand windmill?
Well, no, the pump mechanism.
Oh, the pump mechanism.
So,
yeah, sure.
So my cabin, we don't have water. We got to fill water up. And basically that exact system, we have this little tabletop unit. You throw a tube into the creek and crick, whatever you want to call it, and you crank it, and there's a little...
Is it a creek or a crick?
I think it's a crick.
It's a crick for me, too.
Okay, and you basically... It's the exact same motion, except that'd be pretty cool if you could, like, attach it to a little...
That's what
like
I'm
a
hearing.
Vertical axis, and
That's what you should do.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I have to make one. I'll 3D print it.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Moving on. All right. What do you have next for us?
So I jump all the way up to wind energy and current version wind turbines.
Okay. Well,
I'm ready to move there unless you have more stuff.
Let me lead us off into that. How about it?
Shoot.
Many people believe the windmill and the wind turbine are the same thing. But those people would be ignorant fools, Luke.
They would be ignorant fools.
The windmill was made to help pump water and grind grain, just what we've been talking about for the last 19 minutes or so. But, it's kind of similar to a water wheel. But the wind turbine was primarily made to produce energy, so clean energy for the environment. Now, that doesn't mean that some windmills, which they were, didn't also produce electricity, but that wasn't their primary focus. So again, they were usually for grinding grain or something like that. So they would be doing that, but as like a side gig, they would also be converted to be able to create energy.
They'd have like a little belt on the side that would be hooked up to a generator or something like that.
Right. So that's really the big difference.
Fun fact.
Oh, I want to hear
The
this.
first electric generating wind turbine was a battery charging machine installed on July 1887 by Scottish academic James Blythe to light his holiday home in Marykirk, Scotland. You've been to Scotland.
I have
Did you
been to
see
Scotland.
Did you see anything about windmills there?
I did not see anything about that.
But how about that? Back in 1887.
I know we have an episode that we just let loose into the wild about the top countries by inventor.
Scotland was pretty good.
They were really good.
yeah.
I was surprised for being Scotland and cold and rainy. I'd love to go back. So before we get into the modern times and everything else we have, let's take a break for this week's Luke's rant.
Okay, so here's my rant, and it leads into some stuff I'm going to talk about later. And I think I've done this before.
Probably.
But this is, why don't we have more, like, rooftop, vertical, small windmills on homes? I get that, like, the big ones are eyesores and people don't want them in their backyard, and people want to protect the birds because the birds run into the big ones.
Do they do that a lot?
So apparently the only two cons for the large windmills that you see, or turbines that you see, is the environment. So they're worried about the birds and migratory birds and stuff like that, and then the eyesore that it is. So, but they have small, like, rooftop ones that are literally, like, as tall as you, like,
that is
like 4'7".
Yeah.
You know, they're really short.
Very.
They're vertical, and the diameter on them is only like 3 feet. So you put one of these on every home, hook it up, and you could power, I think in most cases, the ones I've seen, that they can power
a refrigerator.
Well, no. I mean, depending on the size, it can power like most of your house.
I don't believe it.
Well, it depends on how windy it is. But again, they charge batteries, and then you run off the battery. I just don't understand why only like 8% of all the electricity in the U.S. comes from wind.
Is it that high?
Yeah, it's increased a lot in the last few years. It just seems it's easy, it's affordable. There's very little carbon, footprint. Yeah, the manufacturing process to make everything, but it's one of the cheapest. If you look at cents per kilowatt,
it is very
it's
cheap.
One of the cheapest.
2 cents, I think it's down.
I just don't understand why we don't have more of it. I mean, we have so much land and so much space. Same thing with solar. I just don't know why we don't have more of it. It seems
Big
like a
oil.
no-brainer.
Big oil.
Yeah, but
the lobbies.
Well, it could be, but all those
words,
jobs you might lose from oil, they would turn into folks working.
I don't think they're cared about the jobs. I think they're cared about making their cash money.
Oh.
See, they don't have lucrative podcasts like us,
They
so
don't.
that's
You're
the problem.
So that's my rant. I feel like we should really make an investment there.
There's Luke, always worried about his carbon footprint.
I am
well
worried
done,
about my carbon
sir.
footprint. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on. Fun
Moving
fact,
on.
Luke, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, there are 57,000 wind turbines in the United States.
57,000?
Yeah, including land and offshore turbines. So wind turbines can be a standalone structure, or they can be clustered together, Luke.
It's called a wind farm.
How did you know that?
I'm smart.
Boy, you are every day just impressing me.
Thank you.
So one turbine can generate enough electricity to support the energy needs of about a single home. But a farm you could use to generate like a whole neighborhood's worth of energy.
Fun fact.
Oh, I want to hear it.
In the autumn, I don't use that word very often.
I never do. Do you call it fall?
I love the word autumn. I'm going to start using it.
Yeah.
In the autumn of 1941, the first megawatt class wind turbine was synchronized to the utility grid in Vermont. So they're getting it all set up.
Vermont.
It was the Smith-Putman wind turbine. It ran for a little over 1,000 hours and suffered critical failure.
Not funny, but it is.
And the unit was not repaired because the shortage of materials during the war.
Oh.
So they needed, the steel and everything like that. So the first attempt at integrating up in Vermont didn't go over too well.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that terrible?
That's a shame. It really is. You want a fun fact?
Shoot.
The largest offshore wind farm in the world is called the Walney Extension. And I think we might have even talked about this back in our top inventions of such and such a year episode. The wind farm is located in the Irish Sea, which is not fun to cross, approximately 19 kilometers, so 42,000 miles, west of the north. Is that?
That's where the Kraken lives.
I didn't know that. West of the northwest coast of England. So this thing covers a massive area of 149 square kilometers or 56 square miles. That's giant. which makes the wind farm bigger than the city of San Francisco or Manhattan in New York.
Speaking of San Francisco, the largest land wind farm is the Ulta Wind Energy Center in California.
Wow.
And it can produce 1,548 megawatts.
That's a
The
lot of
pictures
gigawatts.
of this are ridiculous.
How many can it make?
1,548 megawatts.
See, apparently this thing in the ocean can only generate 659 megawatts, which can supply 600 homes of power. So maybe I can't believe it's not as windy. I wonder why it would be less.
I don't know.
All right. So moving on. What else do you have for me, Luke?
So, couple facts. So I mentioned the one. Excuse me. Actually, my stat was
gross.
wrong that I said before. So in 2018, wind turbines generated 6.5% of all electricity. I said 8. I was off by a little bit.
I have to yell at him all the time.
But I think a bit of the challenge is the efficiency of these. So did you ever think of the efficiency of a motor or efficiency of solar?
haven't. As an engineer, that is something that has never crossed my mind.
Never crossed my mind. So the problem with wind turbines is their efficiency. So according to Betz's law, which
Betz?
I am very familiar with. He's a physicist engineer kind of guy back in the day.
Yeah.
And basically he wrote this law that determined that you can only pool or extract 59.3% of the kinetic energy that passes
What
over
percent?
59.3%. Yeah, you would think you can. I mean, if you do law,
I thought it was going to be like 97.
I mean, law of conservation is all of it, but
Right.
but there's friction and there's all kinds of other things involved in that process. So you're only getting almost 60% of the kinetic energy actually converted into electrical energy.
Interesting.
So they're not super efficient. That's why you need to have really big ones, and the efficiency actually goes down significantly. They said things like bugs, and if you don't keep these things well maintained, like whenever things get stuck on the front of it, the foil of the blades, their efficiency drops
And
significantly.
they're bigger eyesores then, too.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Huh. I would have expected it to be higher.
I would too.
That's disappointing. So, top 10 install capacity around the world.
Shoot.
Who do you think wins?
I'm guessing China. They win everything.
China.
They do?
221 gigawatts.
1.21 gigawatts.
Yeah, 1.21. It boasts the largest onshore wind farm in the Gansu province, which currently has a capacity of 7,961 megawatts, five times larger than the nearest rival.
China's doing something right. Don't they have the largest hydropower dam as well?
I think so.
Check out our episode.
That's a big place. Yeah, that's right. Check out our episode. U.S. is number 2, followed by Germany, India, Spain, UK, France, Brazil, Canada, and Italy.
That's interesting.
I wonder if a lot of the... See, I would have thought Scotland was on there, but it's too small.
Yeah.
But I would have thought other countries would be on there, but maybe they don't have the right environment. Like, if you don't have wind...
Got to be windy.
Yeah. So,
And you got to have available land. I mean, we have a lot of space compared to these small countries.
or ocean,
Yeah.
as Scotland has shown. What else do you got
So,
for me?
fun fact.
Ooh, I got a lot of fun
today's
facts.
current wind turbines are 50 times more powerful than just 20 years ago. And this is why I love wind power, because the gains are ridiculously good over the last 20 years. If you look at fuel efficiency over the last 20 years, it hasn't increased 50-fold. So in 1990, the typical wind turbine was 50 kilowatts compared to 2016,
Holy
which is
cow.
2,848 kilowatts.
That's nuts.
They're bigger. They're much.
I get it, but
It's crazy. So
Yeah.
if you just imagine if they invested that kind of, or had that kind of gain in, let's say, fuel efficiency.
in my bank account, oh, that's amazing.
There are two types of wind turbines.
Okay. How many wind turbines are there, though?
So the first one is horizontal, and this is the one you think of that you see all the time. These are those big, huge ones you see out in the mountains, and it's not the blades that you're thinking of, it's the axis that the blades spin upon, so it's a horizontal axis. The other one that I haven't seen a lot of, but apparently these are the rooftop types. These have vertical axes, and they have and they spin this way. So they're the smaller ones you see on homes. They're the ones you see that they put above roadways to capture the the passing airflow of buses and cars. The vertical tend to be smaller. They tend to be more like, individual use for like a consumer rather than, producing electricity for an electricity grid or something like that.
I used to work with a startup called Windpacks that made like
them.
little portable ones. I don't know if that ever got off the ground, but that was a vertical, I believe.
So.
Yeah, I hope so as well. So I have a bunch of fun facts for you. You ready? November 2018. Do you remember it?
I don't.
Scotland crossed the threshold of wind power supplying 100% of the country's electrical needs.
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
And they're not even in the top 10 for overall producers.
I know. But I think it's because it's so small and so few people. Wind turbines have as many as 8,000 different components. So I keep thinking how this is going to be like, you put one of these up, you're good forever. There's probably a lot of parts that can
they're
break.
always being worked on.
Wind turbine blades average about 184 feet long. So, and it's almost 290 feet tall. Yeah, when they're making turns with those suckers. Oh, that's nuts. Let's see here. What else do we have that's good, Luke? Wind energy provides more than 10% of the total electricity generation in 14 states and more than 30% in Kansas, Iowa, and Oklahoma. So not a lot good comes out of those states, but there you go.
Be nice.
I was. Modern wind turbines. This will be my last one because I know you have some things to talk about. Modern wind turbines usually have 3 blades, which can reach top speed of 200 miles per hour. How is that a thing? That's nuts.
That is.
All right, what do you got for me?
I got a couple, and this is from American Wind Energy Association. So corporate purchasers of wind energy, the top 3 are General Mills, Ball Corporation, never heard of them, and Walmart. That's kind of cool.
What?
So
Walmart?
So Walmart. They are probably number 3 based on the stats I'm looking at here.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. They're giant. General Mills, I think, makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you think they use windmills to grind their grain too?
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, probably not.
So when you think of capacity,
this is a great page. What's it called?
This is from It's the American Wind Energy Association page, and they have tons of stats. It's a great infographic.
awea.org.
Yeah.
Oh, check it out.
Check it out. So they have this wind capacity by state. Now this isn't what they have installed. This is the potential capacity that they have. No, this is installed capacity. Sorry. So Texas is by far, and it's also one of the biggest states, so it kind of makes sense. Texas has over 25,000 megawatts of installed capacity. Coming in at number 2 is Iowa. I guess it's flat, maybe? I don't know. California is actually not even in the top 3. Oklahoma is number 3.
Texas is so far up there.
They're just so big.
Oh,
and,
my goodness.
And it's crazy. They're our big oil state, too. But they're also the big wind state. I love that.
They're the big state.
Another one that I think people care about is jobs. So,
yeah, we do.
Of course, the top 3 states typically are going to have the top jobs. But in Texas, they have a job capacity or number of jobs. Up to 26,000 people in Texas are involved in wind generation. And we'll do a little Pennsylvania. PA, it's only 2,000. So it's
something.
Kind of low.
Everything's windier in Texas. That's the old saying.
Let's see. What else do we have? So in 2018 alone, wind energy avoided 201 million metric tons of CO2 emissions alone in that 1 year by using wind energy. Isn't that crazy?
That's pretty impressive.
See, this is why I like it. It's win-win.
It's a win-win.
Oh, I see what you did there. You were so funny.
I thought so. Let's end on that one,
yeah,
huh?
That was a good one.
Hopefully you all learned something about windmills and wind turbines. You know the difference of them. You know why some of them are still around, supplying us water, irrigation, all that good stuff, and all sorts of clean energy.
Renewable.
Until next time.
See ya.